Hmm.
This is Jenny Clark with Solvability, and I'm working today with Jennifer Schaus of Jennifer Schaus and Associates, and today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to make the most out of GSA schedules. Hey, so how you doing, Jennifer?
I am great, Jenny. I'm very excited to be with you today and enjoying your podcast. So thanks so much.
Well, it's great to have you on, and I know we've met before in Tampa. You were down for a conference, and I was so excited to meet you because whenever I see something out on LinkedIn and it's Jennifer's, like, I got to stop and read that. It's going to be great to hear about what your thoughts are and what you're doing with GSA, because I know that's like one of your top areas of expertise.
Absolutely. It was great to meet you down in Tampa earlier this year for a conference that we did with a law firm, and it was great to hear a little bit about what you do as far as pricing and helping government contractors with that piece of the puzzle.
There's so much to it, and there's so much to learn, and every day I learn something new, so I'm always glad to get on the phone and on a podcast and hear more about what else is going on in that area. So, Jennifer, I know you've been in this for a while. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your company and how you got into this?
Absolutely. So I've got about 20 years of experience in government contracting. Started my career with Dun & Bradstreet, actually writing credit reports on companies, and then got recruited internally to move to their government division. So we were selling data to federal agencies that were looking at anything from money laundering, white-collar criminals, to actual contracting officers and offices that were pulling D&B reports to ensure that the companies had a financial strength to maintain the terms and conditions of the contracts. So I got a little bit of a business education there, but was pretty much a sales rep for the company, selling to the agencies. And at that time, we were pretty much the stepchild of the company, and some of our clients suggested that it would be easier for them to purchase from us if we were, in fact, on the GSA schedule. So our division, all of 10 to 12 people or so, rolled back our sleeves, and we helped put together the proposal to get the company onto the schedule, and things kind of blossomed from there. I eventually left Dun & Bradstreet to pursue other opportunities with both product and service companies, and kind of became the GSA guru for those companies. So that's kind of where I got my my experience with the GSA schedules, and eventually started a business helping companies with just that. But one of the things that we do is always want to make sure that the schedule is in the company's best interest. It is certainly a vendor shortlist, but too many companies think that it's the holy grail or the silver bullet. And as you very well know, Jenny, there is no such thing in government contracting. It just takes hard work and time and grit.
Yeah, you just have to keep sticking to it. And I loved your story about, okay, I've had to figure it out in my previous job, and I decided to keep working in that area and develop a company around it. And the other thing I really like about what you're doing is you're so good at educating your clients, because you did a webinar series. How many people did you have? How many different topics?
We covered probably 50 plus different topics in government contracting. You were kind enough to participate in, I think, 2 or 3 of those possibly. And all of our webinars, like your content, is out there on YouTube and on our website. So we certainly believe an educated customer makes a better customer, which makes obviously a better government contractor.
Yeah, there's so much to learn. Well, I was going to go ahead and kind of get started talking about this topic, which is 5 ways to make the most out of GSA. I know that just like you, when I talk to government contractors, they're like, we need to get on the GSA schedule. How do we do it? What's it going to cost? What's it going to take? Should we be on this? Should we be on that? And I honestly don't know what to tell them, so I'm so glad to be able to just send them your way and let them talk to you as the expert. So I guess what I'd like to do is just have you kind of talk through these 5 questions about why you should consider a GSA, which schedules, what information you need to have to get ready, how do you submit it, and is there some kind of fast track? So if we take the very first one, why do people need to consider a GSA schedule? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So a GSA schedule is, as I alluded to earlier, kind of a vendor shortlist. Companies that are listed on this schedule have been vetted seriously and thoroughly by GSA. They've got at least 2 full years of financials. They've sold the products or services that they're proposing to sell to GSA. But in essence, it really simplifies the acquisition process for the government. So the less work that the contracting officer has to do, the better. So the companies on the schedule are vetted up front. Their prices are negotiated up front. That way, makes it much easier for the government just to buy directly, knowing that they can trust the companies that are on the schedule. And with a risk-averse government, this certainly gives you some extra muscle in the kind of marketing and business development and sales process. So it can kind of help shorten that sales cycle, which in this sector can range anywhere from 12 to upwards of 24 months, depending upon what it is you're selling. But it certainly needs to be in your best company interest. It should be a business decision. A GSA schedule is only a marketing tool, and it is not required. I say not in all capitals, red, highlighted in yellow, and all the rest. Again, not required. It's just a marketing tool. It's a feather in your cap. It's a ticket to the dance, but you still need to have a human body that's out there marketing and selling your services or your products through the schedule.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So,
sorry, go
ahead. So as far as, so I messed it all up. He can delete this.
Okay.
But how about I pause and let you pick up where you're leaving off? So sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. I was just going to add one piece. So, okay. So in addition, I would also mention the GSA schedule almost functions like an Amazon or an eBay. There's a website, GSAadvantage.gov, G-O-V, that both contractors and any public citizen can go to, as well as the government, to search for bulletproof vests, Xerox paper, pens, professional services, and all of the 20,000 companies that are listed on the schedule, along with their associated products and services, will show up with their associated price for those particular solutions.
So it's like an easy way for a contracting officer to place an order because everything's already been negotiated and they just kind of go to a list, right? Absolutely. But the contracting officers don't look for them. You've got to go find the opportunity to figure out how to do it. And then if they say, do you have a GSA schedule, then that marketing tools come in handy.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, it is a marketing tool, again, not required. The contracting officers sometimes will prefer using the GSA schedule. It depends on the agency that you're dealing with. That's why it certainly makes sense, and we think it's a best practice to do some market research in advance to find out who are your ideal customers, number one. Second, behind that, how do they purchase? And do you have any competitors on the schedule? And if so, then what are their prices? And are your prices going to be competitive with the other companies on the schedule?
Well, that's a lot of good information about being able to research where you should be inside a pricing range like that. That would be a big help.
Yeah, GSA has a lot of great information out there. It's just because people like you and I have been in this industry for so long, we know the websites and the tricks of the trade and where to go and how to easily find that data, manipulate the data so that you can put together a quick sales report or look at pricing and other information to help you make those business decisions about which contract vehicles to pursue. And I will add that the GSA schedule is just one of many contract vehicles. It's used only about 10% of the time in federal government purchases. It does have advantages. If you are selling to state and local governments, they can also purchase off of this schedule. But again, it is not required. So it's a good tool, but you need to...
Yeah, I've heard that about the state and local, and so I guess it depends on the states and the municipalities if they know about using the GSA schedule, or is that something that you can go present to them and let them know about it?
It will vary, and that's a great point and great question. I will say that sometimes you need to educate your customer, even sometimes at the federal level, but typically at the state and local level, that they do have the ability to purchase off of the schedule. And the two, GSA has a variety of schedules. They typically have a number or an acronym associated with them. Two particular schedules, GSA Schedule 70, which is for IT products and services, and GSA Schedule 84, which is for security and law enforcement, were both under President Bush basically grandfathered into all state and local governments. So those two schedules have the ability or are available and open to state and local governments to purchase from.
That's a big benefit then for them to have already negotiated all of that inside GSA. So tell me a little bit more about which schedule should you be on, especially if you're a services company.
Sure. For anyone providing services, particularly professional services, GSA in the last, I think it was 2 years ago, well, we might actually be coming up on 3. I have to check my records here. But they consolidated a lot of the professional services into one schedule called the PSS, Professional Services Schedule, sometimes also referred to by the number/acronym, the corporate schedule. And this combines anything from professional engineering services, advertising and integrated marketing services, project management, program management, these types of services. So depending upon what it is your company does and what you offer, that will dictate what schedule, and even further kind of into the weeds here would be the special item number, which is a number that further identifies what more granularly what your services are.
So the special item number, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So if you think of the schedules like an outline, every schedule will have special item numbers. So, for example, Schedule 70 is for IT products and services. You've got special item numbers 132-51 is for IT professional services. That would be for anyone that's selling program management, systems engineers, Microsoft certified systems engineers, and so forth. The special item number 132-52 is for software services. So anyone that's got perpetual software services or licenses would fall under that special item number. So all the schedules will have special item numbers, and that's really where what you're kind of submitting your proposal up against.
That's a lot of detail to know. Can you imagine being on the committee that has to design how to number the special item numbers for the GSA? I mean, you just kind of wonder how anything ever gets done, don't you? Because I mean, just any kind of change takes so much because there's so many people affected by it.
Correct, and that's a good point because the schedule we were just discussing, the IT schedule, has recently added some new special item numbers, or SIN numbers as they're typically referred to, including one for cybersecurity as well as healthcare IT. So as new technologies develop, as products or services evolve or become obsolete, special item numbers will be removed or sometimes consolidated into one, or sometimes they'll be added.
Well, it's interesting when we do talk to government contractors about what they want to go after and how they do it, because there's so many ways to do it. And when you're talking about these special item numbers and how they're being updated, if they're looking at data that's even 2 years old or they don't know where to look, they could be wasting an awful lot of time on something that doesn't even exist anymore. And I think that's what's so frustrating for a lot of the contractors that don't know their way around. They don't have people inside their company. They have to keep working with outside people to give them that kind of guidance.
Yeah, I mean, the GSA schedule on that same point is an open and rolling RFP, request for proposal. And these RFPs, there are going to be separate ones for each of the schedules, are updated sometimes several times throughout the year, sometimes once a year, sometimes every other year. So as GSA makes changes to the terms and conditions and the requirements, the contractors, as they are completing the proposal to get onto the schedule, need to be aware of the changes in the requirements. So, for example, if a company is submitting a proposal for one of the professional services schedules, and they start doing this, let's say today, November of 2017, and a couple weeks pass, and they jump back into their proposal and eventually go to submit. GSA may have made changes. Maybe there's now a new form that you need to include with your proposal. And if you are referencing an old RFP number that does not include the updates and the new requirements, GSA unfortunately has taken the human element out of the evaluation process and will reject your proposal.
Yeah, and you won't really know why. You'll just say, oh my gosh, we've been working on this for weeks and it got rejected. Now what?
Right, and you can turn around and submit that very same day, and there's a rejection letter that comes with it that will detail where you were deficient. But time is money, and why go through the effort if you're not going to do it right?
That's a really good point. So as far as what kind of information do people have to have ready to start developing their GSA schedule? And people ask me this all the time, and I always say, a lot of the information is corporate information that you have in SAMS as a starting point, but there's so much more to it because they've got to have, here's my labor categories, here's the billing rates, here's how much I received and paid. Could you talk a little bit more about, what information do they need to prepare, what kind of timeline and what kind of effort it is? Because this is no small feat.
Absolutely. The first piece that you would want to make sure is that you believe that this is in your best interest, and I can't emphasize this point enough. You should have at least, I'd say, 2 to 3, if not more, customers that have expressed some sort of interest in purchasing from you, but specifically through the schedule. Once you've got that, as long as your business has at least 2 full years of financials, that you're registered in SAM, and that you do have experience providing these services or products in the past, then that will typically suffice. GSA likes to do work and award contracts to companies that they feel they can trust, that are stable, and so forth. So they'll look at full-time employees, number of contracts that you've had in doing their evaluation. But your proposal is typically segmented into 3 main topics. The administrative section, that's where you're going to have all your financial information and some of the GSA forms and tests that they will want you to complete. The technical section, this is going to be kind of your corporate narrative, your quality control document, an open rating survey, which will go out to, a minimum of 6 of your customers. And then you're going to have multiple projects that you'll submit, as well as copies of the contract and the statement of work, which typically obviously is included in that contract, that support the write-up for the special item number that we were discussing previously. And then the last section is the pricing, which will include your invoices, your commercial price list, as well as your proposed rates to GSA. And this is really the main point of the schedule, is that the schedules are all based on your lowest prices. So before you get onto the schedule, you want to make sure that it is financially smart for your company to do so, meaning that GSA will look at 2 things. One is your internal pricing policies and discounts. So who's getting your best discounts, how frequently, where, when, and why, and are you willing to give GSA something that's equal to, but in most cases better than your lowest price. The second test that GSA will administer is looking at all the other companies that are on the schedule providing these same services, and they will do a line-by-line match. So if you've got a program manager level 2 with a bachelor's degree and 10 years of experience at a rate of $112.87, and everybody else on that same schedule within that SIN number has a project manager level 2 with the same years of experience and education, and they're coming in at $95, then GSA is going to scratch their head and say, hey, why do we need to let you on here at a higher price? We can buy the same exact service from 35 other companies. So these are some things that are required to get onto the schedule, but should also be part of that due diligence that companies conduct before they pull the trigger on this contract vehicle.
Well, I think that's so important that you pointed that out, because I hadn't really thought about it. I've never been in the middle of a GSA. I've just heard people complain about it.
Right.
But what they what they've told me is that, well, we've got to get our payroll data so we can get our average labor category rates and different things like that. And I help people with that type of stuff all the time. But the issue to me is when you said the lowest price or lowest rate for that labor category, because there's so many contracts that come out that says this is a PM and this is a PM and there's no particular detailed description. And if you submitted it, you could end up really causing yourself a lot of problem because you have to submit the lowest rate and there's no way you could provide at that level. You're not making any money.
Right. So obviously the GSA schedule, 99% of it is based on price, but more specifically your lowest price. So Business 101 is going to tell us that with lower margins, you need high volume. That's why we highly encourage anyone that wants to get on the schedule, any of our customers, that they do have prospects who have really expressed interest in purchasing from them through that vehicle. GSA, like I said, has about 20,000 vendors on the schedule. 63%, this is more than half, 63% have zero sales through their schedule. What this means is a couple things. One, there's some companies out there that are pushing and selling schedules to companies that are naive and think that it's going to make their phone ring off the hook and orders are going to come in. That's obviously a myth. It doesn't work that way. Again, you need a human body out there. The other piece is people just kind of have the aggressive mentality of build it and they will come. But many of the agencies also now have their own contract vehicle. You've got Navy Seaport E, NASA SOUP, and the list go on and on. So GSA is just one of many. They've fortunately or unfortunately done a great job of marketing themselves. So that's why they're kind of the I'll say, best known contract vehicle out there. But they're certainly not the only game in town.
Well, there's so much to it. And so the other thing that we talked about with labor categories is there's not like a master list of GSA categories and you just plug in labor rates to it. You've got to send yours and compare them up to others, or, I mean, people use their own internal labor categories, or how does that work?
Yeah, companies have to demonstrate past performance, so you're going to need copies of invoices showing that you've done this type of work with those specific labor categories at designated rates, and then show that your rates are, what you're offering GSA are your lowest rates, as well as that second part of the litmus test, they're competitive with the other companies that are on the schedule. And again,
that
this
makes
is something
sense.
companies should do in advance before they decide that they're going to get on the schedule. Because it certainly can be a liability for companies if they get on and get stuck paying these super low rates that aren't going to be profitable or keep them in business.
Well, you're right. And early in the company stages, they don't have enough volume. They don't know what the rates ought to be. They don't have kind of a feel for what the rates are. And when GSA, those invoices are submitted, are those like invoices no more than 2 years old, or could it include invoices going back further?
Well, your invoices should not be further back than your commercial price list. So whatever your effective date from your commercial price list is.
Okay. And then the other thing that happens, I've heard people that they say, well, I do IT services and some of it's commercial and some of it's government. So if I submit it and my commercial rates are lowest, I've really just forced my government rates down to my commercial level.
Well, yeah, companies are going to have different rates. Sometimes those are discounted for government clients, whether it's federal, state, and local, or nonprofits. So you're going to have to disclose who's getting your discounts and how frequently, as well as kind of what percentage those clients make up of your overall business. So GSA can make a determination if basically kind of make a business case for how frequently you're giving those discounts and does it kind of fit into their pricing.
Well, that makes sense. So how do people submit GSA schedules? What does the process look like?
So it's a good question. It's your number 4 here. And my answer to that would be carefully. How do you submit a schedule? certainly carefully. But giving more detail here, you're going to need a digital certificate by one of the approved companies from GSA, and then you'll go to the GSA e-offer website and upload all of your proposal documents, ensuring that you're on the right refresh number and that everything you're submitting is compliant, complete, and competitive. And you hit submit, and depending upon what schedule you're pursuing, your wait time there is going to range anywhere from, let's say, 3 months to over 12 months until you get any sort of response. And this is why you don't want to wait, whether it's 3 months or 12 months, to submit anything that has any errors in it. Again, GSA has unfortunately taken the human side out of the evaluation process, and if you're missing any part of it, or you're working off of an old refresh number, or you haven't included required information, they're just going to simply reject your proposal, and then you have to start over. So again, make sure that you're very careful about your submission and that it is competitive, compliant, and complete.
Well, so if so they don't reject me right away, it has to get through the 30 days or 3 months or 12 months of evaluation, then I could get rejected.
Correct. GSA is so backed up, hence these very long wait times. Which to me is not really a good thing. Yeah, you can argue that GSA has a underskilled or a junior or a young workforce, and that is certainly the case. But on top of that, too many companies trying to get onto this quote-unquote holy grail, which unfortunately is not a holy grail. It's really just a marketing tool, and it's not going to, it's not required to do business with the government.
Yep, that's good to know. And so, but there's not a fast track for new companies, is there?
For Schedule 70, for the IT professional services schedule, there is a fast track, and it's like and there's also a springboard program which would allow kind of these junior companies to quickly submit, to kind of bump ahead in the evaluation process. There is a little bit more work that's required upfront by the vendor, but these are some of the things that I mentioned should take place kind of upfront even before you decide to get on the schedule. So if you put that kind of these pricing comparisons together, and you submit that with your fast track along with the other required information, that will kind of speed up the process, I guess, a little bit. Some have been done. We've done some in 30 days, meaning after it's been submitted. Others have taken maybe 2 months. And it's a lot of back and forth. Contracting officers at GSA are working on multiple contracts, so you're not the only customer that they're working with.
Yeah, you got to really know to be able to return their phone calls if they're calling you. So the other big complaint, I know you hear this all the time, is I've got a GSA schedule, and then 6 months, a year later, they say, well, I have a GSA schedule, but nobody's throwing money at me. What's wrong? So how do you get work under a GSA schedule?
So this is where I go back to the schedule should be in nobody should have this complaint if they pursued and decided to get the schedule for the right reasons. So again, if you had those customers up front that express interest in purchasing from you specifically through the schedule, and you've got a full-time 1, if not 2 people dedicated specifically to business development and sales, that should not be an issue. Your phone is not going to ring. You're not going to get 100 emails a day of people wanting to buy from you through the schedule. It's just a marketing tool. But you will actually get dedicated RFPs and RFQs for your SIN number, not for the schedule, but for the SIN number that you'll have an opportunity to bid on. You should not, again, capital letters highlighted and red and everything else, you should not rely on those RFPs and RFQs as as kind of the lifeline for your GSA sales and business development. That's just not going to cut it. So I'd say it's for serious companies.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned that it's like a 1 or 2 person full-time job to go after GSA, so you got to make sure you're all in.
Correct. It's certainly not. I don't think it's in the best interest for junior companies typically to go after this. But then sometimes they scratch their head and say, well, how am I supposed to sell to the government? Well, again, there are other contract vehicles to get on. There are other certifications. There's mentor-protege programs, teaming, partnering, joint venturing, subcontracting. There's a host of ways to sell to the government.
That's good. And so there's some reporting required with this as well, right?
Absolutely. Couple things that companies want to stay abreast of, making sure that they meet both the upfront requirements, but then also the post-award requirements, which is going to include everything from financial evaluations on a regular basis, meaning ensuring that GSA is always your lowest price customer. So somebody in your accounting department staying abreast of what's called the price reduction clause. So if you've got a project manager and your GSA rate is $100 per hour, and suddenly you give Coca-Cola calls you and needs project managers, and you give a rate of $99.99, bells and whistles and smoke alarms should be coming out of your accounting system, indicating that you'll need to report this to GSA and then lower your GSA rate by that same amount. On top of that, you're going to have to pay a quarterly, what's called industrial funding fee, typically referred to as the IFF. This equates to 0.75% of your quarterly GSA schedule sales. If you have 0 sales for that quarter, you still need to report 0. And a lot of this is moving into something called TDR, transactional data reporting. Right now it's just a pilot with a couple schedules, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on that and confuse the listeners.
So I guess the other thing is you've already mentioned keeping your GSA schedule in compliance is making sure you're monitoring it for your rates and nothing going below that or you need to adjust. What are some other things you do to keep your GSA schedule in compliance?
Making sure that you're always ready for an audit. The audits will typically occur twice within every 5-year period. So your GSA schedule is a 5-year contract with 3 5-year renewable periods. So in essence, it's a 20-year contract. So you want to make sure that, let's say you've got good hygiene on your rates and the pricing. Again, as I mentioned with that price reduction clause, you want to make sure that you're paying the IFF. Sometimes somebody might purchase something from you. One service or product is open market and the other is something that's on your schedule. You want to make sure that the IFF is only paid on the schedule item. Sometimes there's confusion around purchase cards. Somebody can use a P card from the government and purchase something off of your schedule. You still need to pay the industrial funding fee. Those are not two separate contract vehicles. The credit card is really just the way that they're purchasing, but that purchase could be taking place through the schedule. Product companies have to keep Ability 1 and Trade Agreement Acts in mind, and those sort of things. And then there's updates that GSA will make to your schedule throughout the life cycle, and those are kind of the GSA initiated mods. So you want to make sure that you're compliant with accepting all of those modifications, keeping your SAM record current, and your pricing as far as making any increases or adding products, adding services, adding new special item numbers. There's a lot of moving parts to it. So just, again, make sure that you've got the resources to maintain the schedule while you are on the schedule.
Well, that's all really good information, Jennifer, and I really appreciate your sharing that with us today. I know this is one of your areas that you work in, and boy, you've taught me a lot just in this short period of time we've been talking today. So thanks so much for that. Well,
great. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So when is your next webinar series kicking off? 2018 sometime?
Yep, we're going to start in 2018, and we're going to do a webinar every Wednesday of the week. We'll certainly reach back to you, Jenny, to get some insight on pricing and cost analysis and your piece of the puzzle. We are actually doing just a one-off webinar next week. on GSA Schedules, requirements, risks, and rewards. That's on the 15th, I believe. But other than that, we've got some events coming up, and we are working through the end of the year, which I think is quickly approaching.
Yeah, it's not too far off. I always think it's a downhill slide once we get about the 15th, so
right.
Not much else going on. So real quickly, solvability, we're doing what I call online boot camps for government contractors. My focus is really accounting systems, DCA compliance, and indirect rates. So we've got online GovCon boot camp, a program called Prime Focus, and another one called Strategic Scalability. And what I tell my clients is, I'm going to give you a magic wand. You're not going to know what it is or when you're going to need it, but you can call me 3 times for whatever, and we'll get that taken care of. So that really gives peace of mind. I've also got the Florida GovCon Summit coming up in Orlando. That's going to be February 28th and March the 1st. We've got matchmaking. We've got lots of breakouts, lots of small collaboration, and really looking forward to working with everybody. Jennifer, I did not ask you to tell us the best way for people to reach you.
Oh, super. Love to share my contact information, which phone number is 202-365-0598. Otherwise, our website is just very simply jenniferschaus.com, JenniferSchaus.com. A lot of information and content on our website and LinkedIn, as you are as well, Jenny. We're very active there. So we've got both a company page and a personal profile.
Well, good. Well, I look forward to commenting and liking your remarks some more because I learned so much from doing that. So thanks so much, Jennifer, for being with us today on Florida GovCon Podcast. And I guess I won't probably talk to you till Thanksgiving. So have a happy Thanksgiving, even though it's really early.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in your fantastic series here. Keep up the great work that you're doing for the government contractors, and good luck with your summit in 2018.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye-bye.